And we are live. There we go. Hello, everyone. Let's make sure the sound is working. Let's see if the sound is working okay now. To do a sound check before we get started. So I'm just checking the sound here for a second. And we do seem to be working. All right. Well, it's a few minutes before we get started, so I thought I would just play for a little bit. Been experimenting with using a set of mallets because it makes such a beautiful sound on the drum. I'm going to bring it up here closer to the microphone. So. Hello, everyone. I'm just playing for a little bit while it gets close to the to 1. Well, it is. It's 1 o'clock. So I will just set this aside for the duration of satsang and settle in for a beautiful opportunity for us all. Oh, Eternal Inside GP, when will you see you play some bass guitar? Oh, people remember when I was in New York and there was the bass guitar on the wall, but that's not mine. That was Evans, my senior facilitator and one of my long-term students, and I was staying with him for quite a while actually, as I was wandering around the world, and and so all the guitars around were all his. I played bass guitar once a long time ago, but never really stuck. It was really piano composition and percussion that stuck with me. So anyway, sound is okay. Good. Namaste from Eva. So sorry about sorry, internal inside. You're never going to see me play bass guitar because I don't play. But you should hear Evan. Evan is amazing. Evan Gregor is his name. Look him up on YouTube. He's done a lot of stuff. Greetings from Athens, Greece. Oh, you're from Athens. Wonderful. Starlight Glimmer. Hello, GP. Chris Skills. Hello, GP. Good to see you. No questions. Today, life is finally in the driving seat. Wonderful. So good. So good to meet you face to face too, Chris. That was really great. Eternal Inside. It's 11 p.m. there. Wow. Thank you for staying up. Namaste, beloved GP. Namaste to you, Patang. Sarah Sands, IG. Thanks for such a peaceful and beautiful intro. Yay. Yeah, isn't that lovely? I play it with. It has a nice percussive sound, but when I started, I just decided to try the mallets. And it's just such a nice, light tone that I've really been enjoying it. Paramjeet, Namaste GP from London, UK. Great. Om GP from Isabel Lee, 39. Johanna, hooray for Satsang. Hello all from Jalisco, Mexico. Hello. Tom, hey. David and Elaine. Wonderful. And the questions are going to start coming any moment now. Actually, I think there's one already there. So let's remember why we're here, right? We are here to discover the truth of our being and to know perpetual, eternal happiness. It seems like a tall order, but fact is it actually isn't, because to know yourself is the source of happiness. In the Hindu tradition, and Ramana Maharshi used this phrase many times. There's a phrase, Sat Chit Ananda, and it means being, consciousness, and bliss. But that these three are about as close as we can get to describing the one. Because, when it's one without a second, there's no way to describe it. It defies putting itself into any kind of category. So being and knowing yourself, knowing the actual nature of your existence is happiness. That's Ananda, bliss. Happiness does not come from experiences, doesn't really come from relationships, it doesn't come from events, it doesn't come from possessions, it doesn't come from different states of mind or consciousness, it doesn't come from anywhere. All of those are great. They're places in which you can express and manifest the inherent happiness that is simply the perfume, the result, the ultimate experience of simply knowing yourself as you actually are. And that's why we're here. And I mean just today at Satsang, that's why you've come. But it is also why we're here at all. To discover and express consciously our true being is the purpose of life. That's why we're here. And to know the genuine eternal happiness. Without fear, life becomes a celebration. There's no fear in the self. The fear only arises when you are believing yourself to be someone you're not. And that's the fact. When you believe you are someone you are not, fear inevitably arises. Because the psychological mind, or the ego if you want to call it, is unstable. It can never actually sink its roots down anywhere because it is flimsy. Because it's not a real thing. It isn't an is. It is a thought form that is believed to be an actual thing. I don't know how else to explain it. It's we are believing a thought to be an actual entity. When we recognize that what we've been believing ourselves to be is actually just a thought, our attention naturally begins to turn away from thought, away from the emotional consequences of thought, away from all the sensations, and away from all of our grasping of things in the outside world for happiness, and we turn instead towards that sense of being that had to be there before any thought could be believed, before any thought could be thought, let alone believed. To discover that essential, that which is always there, no matter where you go, there you are, right? Is the whole point of satsang. It is the whole point of your existence. It's the whole point of everything. Well, the questions are beginning to mount up here. Tom says, hey Tom. David and Elaine, hi GP and all, greetings from Southeast England. As you mentioned the Lankavatara Sutra a few weeks ago, we bought it recently by Red Pine. Perfect, that's the right one. So if relevant to satsang, any insights would be welcome. The Lankavatara is one of my two favorite sutras. I mean, I didn't even know it existed, actually. Most people don't. It's very, very, it's not well known at all. The Heart Sutra, of course, everybody's heard of that. That's my other favorite one. Both because those two are really definitive in defining the ultimate in Buddha's teaching. Not the concessionary stuff, not the smaller stuff, the stuff that he the various kinds of things he made up to meet different levels of consciousness where they are and help them move into a position where they could begin to grasp the depth of what his real teaching is. And his real teaching is embedded in the Lankavatara Sutra. It is said that when Bodhidharma, who was the first patriarch of Zen in China, came there from India, started the tradition that when he passed on the lineage and named his successor, who would take over as the patriarch of the whole thing, he was given the robe, the official robe of the patriarch, the begging bowl of the patriarch, and a copy of the Lankavatara Sutra. It is regarded as the Sutra of Zen, and Zen, of course, is the direct path to truth. It is not the progressive path. And so the Lankavatara, admittedly, I was probably on read number 4 or 5 before the depth of it really sunk in, before I started to see the depth of what was being pointed at there. So take your time with it. It is absolutely rich. Also, take your time and read the footnotes. I mean, it's easy. I had it on Kindle, so you could just hit the button and it would bring up the footnotes. But there's a lot of information in the footnotes that Red Pine put in there, and a lot of explanations, some background and things like that, because there'll probably be a lot of terms that you're not familiar with. So enjoy. I can't wait to hear your reaction to it. Ava, concerning music, I love your playing this drum. Oh, thank you. Starlight Glimmer. Is it true that our thoughts control reality? If so, how do we use that ability in a way that doesn't feed the ego? Is it better to accept what is rather than taking control? The desire to take control can only arise from a sense that there isn't control, right? The egoic mind never has control. That's why it's so insecure and unstable. It seeks control. It tries to control things. It tries to control events. It tries to control people. It tries to control circumstances. It tries to control a world through economy and politics and war and all of the crazy stuff that is going on today. That is all the ego trying to control things to be the way it wants them to be. But life continually pulls the rug out from under it, which of course it will. So, is it true that thoughts control reality? No. I'm one who likes to draw a very important distinction. You know, in the law of attraction world, they would say, you create your reality. Well, reality has to be something that is neither created nor destroyed. There's got to be some place where you can stick a stake in the ground and say, this is true. Reality is another word for truth. And a truth cannot be really truth if it's transient, if it's temporary. If it starts here and then ends there, it can't be truth. There's got to be something else. There's got to be something to know that this is truth or not truth. So think of reality as what is. Now, our experience of it is created by attention, belief, and identification. Those are the three things. And they run deeper than just thoughts. You know, just trying to control your thoughts will have a different effect on things. But if a belief shifts, your whole world shifts, doesn't it? If your emotions shift, your world shift. You know, if if somebody's just broken your heart, nothing looks good anymore, does it? Or if you've just fallen in love, everything looks wonderful. Nothing looks bad, right? Now, what's the difference? I mean, that which is being experienced is absolutely the same, but the lens through which it's being seen, and therefore the experience we're having, is completely a result of perception. Now, when you get into some place like Satsang, when you step on the spiritual path, the goal of the spiritual path is to not create better perceptions. It's to discover what's real. It's to actually come in harmony with what is eternally true. That's the point of spirituality. It's not here to just create a better life, right? Although that's a consequence of it, but that's not its purpose, right? It's like you don't have heaven without God. I mean, the whole point is to know truth intimately. That is, to know the truth about yourself. Now, when you look at it from the point of view of reality as truth, not only can you not control it, why would you need to? The feeling of control only arises against the backdrop of fear, and fear can only arise against the backdrop of that belief in separation, that you're not one. So to see ourselves as simply harmonizing our thoughts and feelings and sensations with truth is very different than controlling them to create a different effect. Because once you have a vision of who you really are, a sense of the magnificence and glory of your being, it is then natural for us to want everything in our life to begin to harmonize with that. But you don't do that through control. You don't need. But once you see a truth, you don't need to control your thoughts like that anymore. There's an insight, there's a vision, there's a seeing that takes place that very naturally says, well, that thought's not really true. I can see through that. which of course immediately separates you from it. You don't believe in it anymore. Not believing in it anymore. Not believing it anymore. Sometimes I get distracted by the messages that come up on the screen. Not believing it anymore, your attention doesn't go there anymore, nor do you identify with it. You have really taken up residence in the place of pure awareness, of pure consciousness, which has no impulse to control anything. Everything is simply an unfoldment of it. And so the seeing itself clearly discerns between what is true and what isn't, and that naturally harmonizes thought. Does that answer your question there, Starlight? For me, it's always the same. Find out who you are. Don't bother messing around with the remedial stuff. Find out who you are. Genuinely. Permanently. Not just what you want, not just attributes of you, but you. The you that's there, separate from any wants or desires, separate from any circumstances, separate from any point of reference, separate from any relationships. Take away absolutely everything, and what's left? What's left is pure, unadulterated, unfiltered, and unbuffered you. And that is the eternal here and now. Tom says, there were many negative events during the day and in the evening, and I couldn't concentrate on meditating or doing self-inquiry. I was too incapable of concentrating to ask myself, who feels that? Yes, in the face of a lot of events, like the recent shooting, it can be very disconcerting. Our attention can really be drawn away. I can assure you, though, that the more you know who you are, the more impact you have on the entire world. I mean, anybody who goes off and shoots a bunch of people is suffering under a delusion. For some reason they think it's okay. But I don't see any difference between that and a well-equipped army that thinks it knows what it's doing under the leadership of some moron who wants to steal another country's resources and pretend it's to liberate them. I don't see any difference between it. They too are stuck in a huge delusion. They just have better weapons, bigger weapons, and more people involved in that delusion. So all of it arises out of the misunderstanding of who you are. That's why I emphasize this so much. Until you know who you are, your life is going to be a sense of struggle, conflict, and fear. And if you have a sense of conflict and fear and struggle, and you think somebody over there is to blame for it, who knows what you'll do in order to relieve the pain and suffering that you're under. Of course, it doesn't relieve the pain and suffering. It makes it worse. It makes the delusion thicker and more dense, and heaps consequences on you that will endure for lifetimes. But it is nonetheless the cause of it. It is a complete ignorance of our true nature. And satsang is the cure. That's why we're here. Your inquiry is actually the antidote. And it is working on a very subtle energetic level. It is having its effect every time you do try to ask yourself who feels that. But now let me just make it a little bit more direct for you. You say, I couldn't concentrate on meditating or doing self-inquiry. What that means is that your focus of attention was constantly jumping to the event, to the event, the negative event or events that had taken place, both in the world at large and in your own personal life. But now, who said I can't concentrate? Well, first off, who said that you need to concentrate to be meditating or do self-inquiry? Right? If you're aware, this is all you have to do. Are you aware? And of course, the answer is yes. You're aware of the negative events. You're aware of the fact that your attention doesn't want to settle down. You're aware of the fact that you're having a hard time meditating and doing self-inquiry. Now just put your attention on that awareness. Don't worry about what you are aware of. Don't worry about the state of things that are appearing in front of awareness. It is the same awareness that cognizes utter chaos and distraction and difficulties and struggle, right? As it is recognizes bliss and peace and ease and, attention just sitting still like a well-trained dog. It's the same awareness. This is where I want to bring your attention to, because we temporarily lose our sense of inner mastery and inner awakening when we assume that somehow what we are aware of must be more harmonious. It doesn't. The awareness of it is where the attention goes. And to recognize that awareness is changeless. It's the same. Even if there's a huge storm going on and the thunder and lightning, or if it's a beautiful warm breeze and a sunny day and you're sitting at the beach, it's the same sky. The sky is not affected by what comes up and down in it. And what comes up and down in it doesn't leave a trace in it. It doesn't write something there like graffiti and it's permanently there. It leaves no trace whatsoever. It's like writing your name on water. It's gone the moment you do it. So become aware of that, of the awareness, right? More than what you're aware of. Now, it's very natural for us to gravitate more towards, harmony and happiness and joy and fun than it is to misery and grief and pain, for sure. And obviously, nobody in their right mind chooses the latter. However, to become free, truly free of all suffering, is to recognize the absolutely unchanging, infinite nature of the awareness that is so transcendent that it is aware of both. And that's where you actually are, aren't you? Isn't that what is aware of everything? Aren't you the one that's aware of both? Well then, you and awareness, same thing. That is your nature. And it's only the habit of thinking of ourselves as being a person, a body, a form, a temporary thing, a collection of stuff. It's only our habit of associating the sense of self with a form that makes us feel as if the circumstances need to be harmonious for me to be harmonious. Awareness is always harmonious. No matter what comes up, it does not affect it. Does that help you, Tom? Sophie says, Namaste, GP. Grateful to be here with all love. Oh, thank you, Sophie. Glad to have you. Arby says, why does evil exist? How does one have the heart to do something like a mass shooting? Well, as I think I explained it when I was answering it for Tom, because he was upset about it as well. And, anybody who becomes aware of it, anybody who actually has a heart, is going to. As I said, it is a delusion. It is, this guy, as a matter of fact, every mass shooting in the U.S. has been at the hands of a white supremacist of some sort. What you have are people who feeling very threatened. They're feeling alone and alienated. They're feeling very frightened and scared, and they're blaming somebody else for those feelings. And now with the help of some, propaganda and some idiots that are basically encouraging them, they're given a sense of that it really is these other people's fault, that these other people are less than you, that they've unnaturally and illegitimately encroached on your rightful territory, that you are entitled to certain things and that they're in the way of it. And the mind can get twisted enough to think that it's the victim and they're the perpetrators. And if you manage to do that, to make them less than, which we do all the time in the propaganda to justify war, because if they're my equal, if they're truly my brothers and sisters, I can't kill them. I have to make them less than. And so once I do that in my mind, I am now evil. This is what evil is. There's no such thing as conscious evil. Evil is always a delusion. It is always unconscious. It is always thinking that what it's doing is this good, right, important thing. It never suspects that what it's doing is evil, because the moment you see evil as evil, nobody can hold on to it. So the Hollywood movie, bad guy who just takes joy in being bad, the persons don't exist. It is always a state of self-deception, so that you can think that what you're doing is the right thing, and in fact you are heaping misery upon lots of people, maybe millions of people, and just bringing a truckload of karma down on your head. Obviously, the only way out of this mess is to see clearly, to see intelligently, to see what's actually happening. It's the only way. And we're living in a world right now, we're in the middle of World War III, whether you knew it or not. But this is not a war of weapons, at least not yet. It is a war of the mind. It is a war to try to control people's perception of things. And it's been going on for a while. And you can see it in the media and all sorts of things. I don't want to get too far off on this. But you can see that the only way that evil, and we're seeing evil all over the place, right? The only way it can survive is that it thinks it's good. It convinces itself that it's good. Obviously, the ones who have the capacity and the knowledge to be able to see through and to heal this disaster are those of us sitting right here and others around the world who are beginning to wake up. We are seeing the inevitable consequence of letting the ego, the false sense of self, run your life, and run your family, run your community, run your entire culture, and now it's really trying to run the world. And we're seeing the fruit of that. In the seeing of that comes the wisdom, which is why I don't see this as this terrible thing that shouldn't have happened. When I look at all the stupid things I've done in my life, the mistakes I've made, the pain I felt when I realized that I had wittingly or unwittingly hurt someone, and I actually had enough empathy to feel the suffering that I myself had created, I got wise. I said, whoa, I did that, and I can't undo it. Right? This is the kind of depth of remorse that we have to come to terms with. If we do, the world will be saved. It'll be saved by our empathy and our compassion. If we don't, It's going to be dark times. But eventually we have to, because the ego is essentially unstable, it has no control, it has no foundation, and the truth does. The ego requires belief in it to sustain itself. The truth requires nothing to sustain itself. It is the truth. Okay. Let's see. That big long name I can't pronounce. Hi, GP. Do you have experience with dark entities? Yeah, I've had some experiences. Again, I'm not going to call them dark entities because I don't give anything entity other than the self, the true and only self. To me, the only entity is God, the ultimate, the absolute, the I am. I'm not dealing with you as an entity, right? Although you see yourself as an entity, right? But I don't. I don't see myself as an entity. Only the self as what is. Everything else is an appearance of that. What we would call dark energies or entities are just disowned aspects of ourself, both individually and collectively. We have to realize that the division between you and I is imaginary. Therefore, the fact that I can pick up on your energy and have an experience that is really your experience indicates that the separation between us is imaginary. So yes, there'll be all sorts of feelings and experiences, powerful influences that seem to contract us and even hold us. The solution to it is always the same. Go back to the place that is beholding it and see if that is being controlled. The controlling or the intimidating of a dark entity can only intimidate the idea you have of yourself. It can't actually intimidate the self. How can you intimidate the eternal? How can you offend God? How can you control the infinite? You can't. Right? So we have to imagine ourselves to be finite and separate and limited and mortal in order to experience being intimidated or controlled or dominated or pestered even by some quote-unquote entity. That entity can be traumatic material from this life or a past life. It can be just a general attitude, a general belief within the collective consciousness that we're all a part of. That is, kind of seeps in and out. You have to realize that what you call your individual consciousness is simply a bubble in the universal consciousness. That's all it is. You are the universal consciousness that is just tend to focus on this one little bubble, but in fact you have access to all of it. And it all just does encroach. Right? But to make it an entity in belief, you have made it a thing that has power now. Now it's a different ballgame. Now I'm doing rituals or some kind of things to dispose of the entity. If you see that the entity isn't an entity, and the only thing that affects us, the only thing that influences my life is my beliefs about life, and that I believe there's some entity out there trying to get me, which is, by the way, what the ego is, the belief in an entity that's trying to get you. Once you see that, you're not fooled anymore, because nothing can touch you except what you believe. Period. Does that answer your question? Ein frischer Grebe des Lebens. Labens? Boy. Ernesto, I have an inner impulse that reminds me with silence to be quiet and to be present. I'm aware that's my true self, and I just have a question. why am I not achieving the bliss that people talk about? When I surrender my ego to the silence of true self, I get this feeling inside of unpleasantness. And after a bit of remaining in silence, I'm able to be serene, but it feels like so much effort. There is an effort, because remember, you have habitually turned towards the chaos that is the egoic mind, and away from that silence. So there's a habit. There's simply a habit energy that's taking your attention away. Okay? But if you, even if it takes a few minutes and you find that silence, you simply recognize that silence is your true nature. Right? That's you, right? And so everything else is happening in front of that. You are that silence. That silence is the bliss that people talk about. That is the ananda. That is the state of simply stillness or peace, right? That is the nature of knowing being, Satchidananda. Right? The mistake we make is that what we think what they mean by that is some kind of emotional high. Something like, an emotional happiness. Like the happiness you get, when you get something you want, right? When a desire is satisfied. There's a certain emotional release, and there's a high, and it feels really good. That's not it, right? That which is aware of the emotional high is also aware of the emotional low. When I go into grief or sadness or something like that, we think that somehow the awakening is, no more sadness or grief, and it's all just this blissful happiness. Not true. Not true. It is the stillness that has no issue with any of it. And as you are less and less concerned about the ups and downs of everyday life, the more the genuine happiness or contentment, which is probably a better word for it, begins to be seen as your actual nature. And paradoxically, that actually makes life more juicy. It makes the highers higher. It makes the lowers lower. Right? I mean, you really feel the grief of loss. Right? But it does not. It's not a problem, something to resist or get rid of. It is simply the range of feeling, the full range of feeling that we are capable of, which is staggeringly large. So don't think of bliss as something that you achieve. Just keep following the inquiry. The sense of unpleasantness is simply, your nervous system isn't used to silence. It's not used to that quiet. It's not used to the peace. It's, that impulse to grab is not going to go away like that. It's been here for lifetimes. The grasping attachment has been here for lifetimes. But now if we can see that energy, right? I get this feeling inside of unpleasantness, okay? What's cognizing the unpleasantness? And is that which is cognizing the unpleasantness, is that unpleasant? You see, the true nature of the self is ineffable. It's unknowable. It is indescribable. Right? Yet it is that point, that place, that position that cognizes everything and has no real preference for what it cognizes. Because nothing it cognizes affects it. Right? Like nothing happening in the sky affects the sky. A galaxy exploding would not affect space. It wouldn't be the least bit touched by it. It wouldn't even leave a mark. So keep going back to the place of seeing, the place of knowing, where the unpleasantness is known. is recognized and even identified. And see if that transcendent place doesn't possess the kind of happiness and bliss that you've heard about. But remember, it's not emotional. It's energetic. It operates on a completely different level. It is just part of the stillness of knowing and knowing that you know. Knowing that you are that. And that everything that happens is phenomenal. And it happens in front of you. It is, you are aware of it, but it never actually touches you. Eternal inside. Besides knowledge, the theory, what must one do to help him end the suffering? To help him end the suffering or help you end the suffering? It's actually the same thing. I mean, the knowledge that you are hearing, like the knowledge in satsang, is not knowledge for knowing. It is not, oh, now I understand, because it never happens that way. It's knowledge for pointing. True knowledge goes beyond what we would normally call knowledge. It would be an intimate knowing. You know, like when you say you know somebody, oh yeah, I know them, and then you know somebody like a really good friend, right? Or your life partner, right? That's a different level of knowing, isn't it? Matter of fact, that knowing is so deep and so visceral that you might not, try to describe them, you might have a hard time because it's not even a picture anymore. It's so integrated into all of you that it's even beyond intimacy. It's like integrated into you. So to immerse yourself thoroughly, so thoroughly in the self that suffering ends for you, you will help. You have just eliminated an enormous amount of suffering from the world. Right? And your capacity to see through suffering will save many, maybe thousands of other beings from suffering, right? who simply don't see the way. They are still in their ignorance. So come out of your ignorance. Robert Hill. Hi, Mr. G. Hope you're okay. I am, thank you. Can my anxiety after awakening be misinterpreted extra energy? Can you say something about grounding? Thanks. Well, in some traditions, they talk about awakening as, the kundalini rising from the root to the crown chakra, the release of Shakti energy and the like. And yes, the energy that you're experiencing, because it may be so unfamiliar to you, is creating anxiety. So yes, it can be misinterpreted release of energy, right? When the false sense of self loses its grip and dissolves even somewhat from the nervous system, remember, it's holding everything tightly, right? You're in a little prison, and suddenly that prison, those walls fall away and you're in a much bigger space. Yes, there's going to be a release of energy. Grounding, exercise, good natural foods, get rid of all processed foods, right? Fresh fruits and vegetables. If you can find your way to it, stop eating meat. If you can't, at least minimize it. Start eating less of it. Walk more, move your body more. Put your feet bare feet on the ground more. And generally just take care of the body, which needs to make an adjustment to be able to process the new level of energy that's happening. And most importantly about the grounding is to simply remember that this flood of energy, even if it is anxiety, is not a problem. It's just a physical and emotional state. It's a set of sensations and emotions that are running through the system, and they are temporary. They are not permanent. And that which is watching them come and go, which is you, is permanent. And that is not something that fluctuates. It's not something that has a big burst of energy. It is aware of the bursts of energy. It is aware of the highs, it's aware of the lows. It's aware of the, when you got so much energy you could run a marathon, it's also aware of the times when you don't want to get out of bed. It's the same awareness, and it is not affected by any of it. If there's a thought there that says, this energy is a problem, that will create the anxiety. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Right? No, you're not. Obviously you're not. Keep going back to the place from which you are seeing, because that's your awakeness. Right? Remember, awakening is not a personal possession. No one awakes. Awakeness itself awakens to itself. That may seem a little bit out there, but the guy in the dream doesn't wake up. The one dreaming wakes up. Oh, I'm not that guy in the dream. I never was. So the one who awakens, you don't know. Matter of fact, you'll find you can't know it. That awakeness has no form to be identified as this or that. So again, it's all a matter of phenomena. Then there's some ideas and thoughts and beliefs about the phenomena that sets up a conflict with the phenomena, but all of that is being viewed by the place that has no conflict with anything. So just let the sense of self, the sense of the awakened me, sink more deeply into that pure knowing. Pure knowing is your nature, right? You are not someone who knows. You are the knowing itself, formless knowing, formless self-awareness. That's the true self. Consciousness without form is the self. Anybody getting this? The young great, yes you do. Somebody took some mollies and shrooms. Okay. Are you okay? Too high? Some help? Yes, thanks. Do you need some help? Did you get a little too high? It's a good place for it, though, because even an experience induced by drugs, and some of it are very useful. Sometimes it's recreational and it's party. Sometimes it's medicinal. It's been a long-honored tradition. But ultimately, you will see that while it opens doors, it is still phenomena. It's all phenomena, and that you're not. that experiences it, whether it be a trip on shrooms or an afternoon walk in the park, that the awareness that is aware of that remains untouched by that. And to see that liberates you from everything. It actually even liberates you from the medicine, because it's a medicine. You take it into your well. What's well? Awake. So, Amber, what do you recommend if I'm struggling to observe and unidentify with my pain, physical and emotion? Want to allow it, but I feel such deep conditioning to resist, judge it, and it overwhelms me. Right. Let's just do it together now. And just, everybody join me on this. Just close your eyes for a second. And let your attention just simply focus inward. And just notice everything that you're feeling. Notice the emotions you're feeling. Notice the sensations you're feeling. Some of the sensations may be pleasant. Some may be very unpleasant, even painful. And you'll notice that when there's a pleasant one, there's kind of a natural impulse to want to hold on to it and amplify it. And if it's unpleasant, there's an impulse to want to push it away, diminish it. And just notice that that's there. And bring your attention to the place where it's being noticed. Now the sensation you're having and the resistance to the sensation you're having are both being perceived at the same place. The desire to unidentify is simply a resistance. You want to get rid of it. So completely embrace both the sensation and the desire to get rid of it. And now let go of any idea you have about it whatsoever, whether it should be there or shouldn't be there, whether you like it or don't like it. Even the word pain, drop it. And just be with the sensation as a sensation and all the natural bodily reactions to it. Everything comes and goes except you, which are cognizing the coming and going. And yes, the resistance is conditioning, right? But you are seeing that too, aren't you? That seeing means something has stepped away from it, because the seeing is not conditioned. You can't condition awareness. Can't do it. Conditioning is something that awareness has to be there in order for it to be seen or known. So just let go of all the ideas you have about yourself, everyone. Just all the ideas, just set them aside. And just notice what remains. Because that's you. And yes, there can be experiences. Right now I've got a few, aches and pains in this body. Okay? I cognize those. So take a nice deep breath and move your body a bit. And then you can come back and open your eyes. It's a very simple exercise, a very simple meditation. Sometimes when we think, okay, I need to disidentify with the ego to overcome my suffering, we can start beating ourselves up about it. Like, just wait. There's not like you, and I'm going to disidentify. That actually doesn't work. There's a cultivating of your knowing, of your intimate seeing, and that all by itself eliminates and disidentifies. If you see who you are, you won't possibly be able to identify with anything that you're not. So it is the deepening of our seeing that needs to take place. And that naturally disidentifies. We don't have to struggle to disidentify. We turn that entire thing into an inner conflict. And we start blaming ourselves and judging ourselves. I'm not doing a very good job of this. I should be better. Blah, 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 blah. Who said? Just keep returning to the seeing with no overhead, with nothing extra. Just that. And then watch what happens. I think you'll find that there won't be any judgment, and there won't be any overwhelm. You cannot overwhelm awareness. Overwhelm is just a temporary modulation in consciousness that appears to awareness. And awareness is there, notices that it's not there, notices that it arises, notice that it endures for a moment, and notices that it disappears. But awareness itself cannot be overwhelmed. And that's you. That is what you are. If you are the awareness, then you can't be overwhelmed. The only thing that can be overwhelmed is the idea you have of yourself as a finite, mortal, constricted person. But that isn't you. That's just an idea appearing in front of the infinite awareness which you are. Does that help, Amber? Starlight Glimmer says, thank you, GP. If we know our true selves, what will the effect be? I feel like I've come to know momentarily, but I lose it whenever I see something like these recent shootings. Would these events stop if we really came to know ourselves? Yes, absolutely. Yes, they would. And even you coming to know yourself will have an effect on the entire world. You know, the person who's impelled to do that, suddenly the impulse won't be as strong. Right? Their conditioning will be diffused somewhat by you transcending yours. It really works that way. We are interconnected. You know, every breakthrough I have, really the whole world has, because I can't separate myself from the rest of the world. Every breakthrough you have is a breakthrough for the whole world, because you're not an isolated part of it. You are the whole. And so the whole awakening to who it is manifested in these little awakenings that happen as individuals. Personal realization of Buddha knowledge. The Buddha knowledge is infinite and eternal and universal, and it appears as individuals awakening. But what it means is universal awakening, the one awakening to itself. Again, to wake up to who you actually are is the cure for human suffering of all kinds. And these people who create these acts, they're tortured, you know. My mother was mentally ill, and she was a tortured soul. I mean, she was never content. She was never at ease. She could never sit still. She was just, it was just always different circumstances. And she was very extreme right wing too. Right? You know, so she would be very unkind to people and think that, you know, they got what they deserve and law and order and all that sort of stuff. So I mean that mental illness made, you know, completely. I mean, in different circumstances, and she could have been a tyrant. Well, she was actually, but she could have been a tyrant on a larger scale, and could actually lose empathy with others. So these are tortured, really tortured individuals, tortured by attempting to make their highly unstable egos into something stable. And they do that by grabbing onto ideologies and the like, which are basically sold to them, and then justifying, thinking that somehow, you know, that is my problem. If I can just get rid of that, I've got rid of my problems. And of course, it doesn't do anything except compound them. But for you, the important thing is you are the antidote to that. You are. Your awakening is the world's awakening. They're not separate. You never were, and you cannot be. Jill Whalen. Isn't our being upset by the idiots the same thing that the murderers are doing? Yes. Yes. The difference is, we call them upset by the idiots. If you actually see them for what they are, they're suffering beings, right? That are simply creating more suffering. And suffering beings create suffering. That's all they do. That's all they know how to do. So, to simply see them as an idiot and they're wrong and they're stupid and they should be done away with is no different at all, right? To heap that kind of anger and hatred on it. We need to do two things. We need to wake up to our true nature, which provides an environment for others to wake up to their true nature. And we need to protect ourselves by taking away their access to the stuff that allows them to do it. That's just reasonable, right? If you have a crazy person, you don't give them a gun. Simple. It's really simple. An insane person, you don't hand them a bomb and let them loose in New York City. You don't do it because they're crazy, right? And to recognize that level of disturbance and that level of suffering is going to try to create suffering, is some to try to ease the pain. It's just wise for us to understand that and to work for a cure, and also work for, to protect the innocent. It's just the smart thing to do. Duck says, "Greetings, GP. I tried doing the self-inquiry without thinking in words, but by feeling the questions. I do that in order to avoid language as a limited way of expressing the full meaning of a question." Let's see, I don't see any after that, so I guess your question, is that a good thing to do? Yes, just don't try to force yourself into not thinking, okay? You can feel a question, and the feeling you have is the desire for freedom. That's the ultimate, that's the essence of the question. I want to be free, right? How do I do that? Where do I turn to find the genuine, eternal, unchanging freedom that I crave? And when you pose that question to yourself, yes, the mind is going to want to answer it contextually and conceptually, because that's what they do. So if you are aware that the mind is doing that, and you're aware of the feeling nature of the question, and you're aware of the deep natural desire for freedom, put your attention on the awareness, because that's your being. The awareness is the self. It is your self. It is your true self. Right? And then you don't have to avoid language like there's some kind of penalty for thoughts intruding, because there isn't. Right? So don't invent one. Don't believe a penalty into existence, because there isn't a penalty. You are simply aware of thoughts. I'm aware of thoughts. Okay. Cool. Of course I'm aware of thoughts. And I'm also aware that they're just thoughts, and that no thought can think itself. And the only reason the thought's here is because I was here first. I'm what it can appear to. And knowing who I am, I don't purchase the thought. I don't buy into it. I don't believe it. Does that help? Give me one quick second here. I need to refill my water. And so just everybody sit and ponder your own being for a second. Be right back. Right. All right. Oh, everybody's still here. Good. You didn't abandon me when I had to walk out of the room for a bit. Nazrin Golden, hi. I've been experiencing muscle tension in the entire, all of my body for many years. Is it possible to be free of pain by doing ayahuasca? Well, I'm not a shaman. I can't tell you what it can do and what it can't do. I can tell you that if you choose to look in that direction, find yourself a genuine shaman to do the journey with. There's a lot of people who claim to be, a lot of people just kind of, do it on their own. The shamans that I know have been years in training and have had to go through a really quite an extensive process by which they create a relationship with the plants, with the medicinal plants. I know that at the root of all muscle tension, pain in the body, right? Again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak from the point of view of a medical person. My experience and my approach to it is that it is energetic in nature, and that if you are simply willing to be present with the muscle tension in the entirety of your body, and there's no resistance, you will have relieved the essential conflict that creates the inner suffering that we experience. The sense of it's a problem. I've got to get rid of it. It is my understanding that something like ayahuasca can assist in that. It is actually it is a medicine. A natural medicine. Unlike a lot of the pharmaceutical stuff that would be prescribed for that. But primarily, I have several friends who are shamans, and the heart and soul of it is do you completely welcome the experience? It's a different experience. It's an altered state of consciousness when you're on a medicinal plant like that. But it is an experience that needs to be welcomed, right? Can you welcome this tension? Can you actually give yourself permission to fully feel it? Can you put your attention in the body and actually feel the sensation going through the body? Letting go of your resistance, or the idea that there's a problem, something I've got to get rid of. Anything that creates a conflict between yourself and what is clearly happening, right? Anything that alleviates that is going to have a profound effect on whatever it is in the body that's making it feel like it has to tense up. And it's always some kind of pattern in the nervous system where it detects or assumes, even if it doesn't see it, it assumes there's some kind of a danger in the environment, and it's got to be on the alert. So, the first answer to your question would be allow it. Really practice what I call the yoga of allowing, and be totally present with whatever it is. Welcome it. Really get to know it intimately, really as a pure sensation running through the system. And then see what happens. And if more help is needed, well, maybe contact if you're drawn in that direction. But my personal experience, knowing lots of people who do this, is that it's better to go on a journey like that for the purpose of self exploration rather than to simply solve a problem. I mean, there have been people who do that, and it could very well work. But even if you do that, people ask about that, should I do that, plant ceremonies and things like that, and I say, first, become adept at this kind of an inquiry, become adept at, have a meditation practice, be adept at the yoga of allowing. Because anything that opens the doors of consciousness and exposes some deep, unprocessed material can be very unpleasant unless our character has been prepared to receive it. And that's why I teach allowing and body awareness and all these things as part of inquiry. It isn't just about making this inquiry. It is about preparing ourselves to be able to intelligently and creatively and compassionately deal with the unprocessed, unhandled, traumatic material that has been accumulating for lifetimes. Right? And obviously, the better you can do that for yourself, the more capable you are of being able to do it for others, which of course helps with those people who are suffering, and some suffering so badly they start doing violence against others. Liz Love says, I was raised by a German mom who was raised by a strict dad. She worries a lot, and my siblings and I have this ancestry habit that doesn't know how to have fun. How do I break this pattern when she won't? Well, patterns of conditioning, habitual reactive patterns, and that's all it is, okay? There's something inside that says it's dangerous to have fun, which means that when you're a little kid and you're having fun, or too much fun, as your parents would say, I mean, I heard that a lot, right? That there's some kind of punishment would happen. Maybe abuse, maybe just diminishment, maybe just, who do you think you are? Life isn't fun, all sorts of stuff that gets laid on us. And so, the nervous system just gets into this habit of, no fun, withdrawing, back to work. It is just a habit, just as you have noticed, right? So, begin to see that it is just a conditioned response and not you. It only becomes a problem if it's me. I can't have fun, right? But it's not actually you. It is a reactive pattern in the nervous system that is reacting to the reaching for fun, reaching for entertainment, reaching for just some new experience or excitement or that sort of stuff. It's just expecting to get the hand slapped. You are in the conscious driver's seat because that which is aware of conditioning is itself not conditioned. If it was, it couldn't see it. For me, the solution is always the same. Find out who you are, and you'll find that you have never been in a habitual pattern. The nervous system has. And when you realize that it's not you, you become powerful enough to create the safe environment in which the nervous system itself can begin to drop the habit, right? But as long as you say, this is a problem, this is a habit I've got to get rid of, this ancient habit, how can I break this habit when she won't? Let go of your desire to break the habit then. Because you're just doing this, you're just fighting it. And sit back and watch it. Sink into the position of the one who is aware of the habit. Is the one who is aware of the habit subject to the habit? Is the seeing of the habit stuck in the habit? Is the seer of your experience in the experience, or is it this wonderful, open, spacious awareness that is perceiving it? It's all a matter of what you identify with as myself. Am I the habits, or am I the awareness of the habits. It is such an important distinction. And when you really look, you find it self-evident. I'm the one that's aware of a habit. If I'm aware of that habit, I've transcended it. I am more than that. So now if it comes and goes, fine. I don't make an issue out of it. I just happen to notice that when I reach for fun, something wants to stop it, right? Okay, fine. I'm aware of that. I am that awareness. To me, there is no other solution. You are not the habituated nervous system. You are not the robot. You are not that voice in your head. You are not that reactive pattern in the body. They will last as long as they last. But the more you know who you are, the safer the spaces that you create, both internally and externally. And you will find that all of these things just fall away because there's nothing there to sustain them. They require your participation. You have to buy them. And if you don't buy them, they've got nowhere to go. Elsa says, how do I change a belief? By seeing it as a belief. Simply that. Oftentimes people ask me that question. It's like, okay, I know my beliefs are creating my experience. I want a different experience, so how do I change my belief? Your actual belief is that you don't like your experience and you want to have a different one, so you want to shift in order to get that result. I urge everybody to want to make the shift in order to see what's true. Don't just exchange one belief for another. Find out what's true. The truth is not a belief. It does not need to be believed to be sustained. It is self-sustaining. And in the presence of truth, a belief cannot stand. How can it? It is seen for what it is. And your seeing is the pure awareness. You are that. That's what you are. It is what's seeing. It's what's hearing my words right this moment. It what recognizes a belief as a belief. And the essential belief is that you are a separate self. That you are a separate self capable of believing all sorts of nonsense. Drop the belief that you hold about yourself. The belief that you are separate, that you're a person, that you're limited, that you're mortal, that you had a beginning and an end, a birth and a death, lifetime after lifetime, you're subject to karma and the law of the universe and all of these things. It's all nonsense. It's all false. You are not any of that. And knowing that, beliefs will naturally appear as beliefs to you. And when it appears as a belief, you don't have to change it. You see through it. You won't be just saying, oh, this is a bad belief, I want a better belief. They're all beliefs. And you don't want a belief, you want the truth. Want the truth more than anything else. And this will become easy. Jaya Devan says, hi G, after awakening, how are the old forms of behavior corrected in the moment? For example, road rage. To awaken means that you have at least begun the process of identifying with consciousness as yourself, rather than what you are conscious of. Now, one of the things you become conscious of is basically the conditioned responses of the nervous system. And then understanding the nature of your nervous system, the nature of the energy system, the nature of the functioning of life, you realize that life is very protective. And when it feels threatened, it reacts with fear or with anger. Road rage is an expression of someone feeling so disempowered that they actually take things personally. You know, somebody cut you off in traffic and they're an ass, right? Why did you do that to me? Well, they didn't do that to you. They don't know you. They're not out driving around looking for people like you to cut off and give you a bad day, right? The sense of a person takes that very personally and gets really angry, and why are you doing that? But you can see that underneath that is just a festering frustration and disappointment with life. Life isn't going the way you want it to go. Okay, well, what's the remedy for that? Control everything so that it goes the way you want it to go, right? Visualize till you're blue in the face, the veins pop out of your neck, right? So you can attract the life that you actually do want. Or do we come to terms with the actual nature of the unfolding of life itself? Do we come to see ourselves as life, not as something in conflict with life? Right? I mean, really think about it. A house divided against itself can't stand. Is life your enemy? Is life really trying to make obstacles for itself? Is it trying to restrict itself from growing, from experiencing joy and happiness? Is life really trying to do that? Are the circumstances you are experiencing in your life at this moment really trying to mess up your life? Or are they just happening? And it's our job to harmonize with what is. But to harmonize with what is, we have to see what is, which means we have to look beyond our story about what's happening. And our story is always based on the idea that I am this finite, separate person. The story isn't based on us being infinite consciousness. It is being finite, limited, localized consciousness in this body, struggling to survive, trying to get what it needs, angry that, somebody doesn't give me what I need or cuts me off in traffic or something like that. Can you see that it's simply the identification with a thought form of this limited person, and it's nothing but a thought. And every thought appears to that which is not a thought. And it's no great thing. It's no great mystical thing. Right? Consciousness is simply what is hearing my words right now. It is what's cognizing. Right? The microphone that's picking up my voice isn't hearing me. Your eardrum that's vibrating in harmony with the sound isn't hearing me. The speaker or the headphones aren't hearing me. The air, right, that's carrying that vibration is not hearing me. What is cognizing? What cognizes can only be called consciousness. That's consciousness, and that's you. I mean, isn't that where you are? If I say, what's cognizing, don't you have to say, I am? Well, then you are consciousness. Now just be consciousness without mixing it up with what you're conscious of. That's all you have to do. It's so very simple. The attention is on that which is perceiving more than that which is perceived. The perceived can only happen in the presence of the ultimate absolute perceiver, which is consciousness, which is awareness. Right? I mean, it's really quite simple, isn't it? Starlight Glimmer says, did you ever hear the story of Zunzong dreaming he was a butterfly? Yeah, he woke up not knowing if he was a man that dreamt he was a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming that he's a man. Yes, I am familiar with that. And it really is quite illustrative of the fact that it really is the context from what we're seeing. Every night you go and have a dream, and in that dream you are there. You are this person. You are this experience. And yet you wake up and realize that you're not. Well, this awakening is exactly the same. You simply awaken to the fact that who you thought you were, you're not. And that who you actually are is impossible to describe. It is impossible to put into words. It is impossible to conceptualize, and yet it is intuitively obvious. You are what is aware. You are awareness itself. Everything appears to you. You are not something that is aware. You are the awareness that is aware of all things. That's you. And yes, you can imagine yourself to be a finite person. That is, an imaginary version of you can appear in front of awareness. But believe me, awareness is never fooled. Wendy says, didn't think I would ever say that I love losing. Nothing to gain, nothing to strive for, make effort. It's so freeing. Like a tree that loses its leaves. It doesn't have to be told fresh new leaves will grow. It knows. Yes. To learn to lose gracefully, knowing that nothing that is actually you can ever be lost, is enormously freeing. You cannot lose anything. It says in the Tao that to the one who seeks knowledge, something is gained, learned every day. To the Tao, to those that seek the Tao, something is lost every day. We are losing the false sense of who we are. We are not gaining the true sense, right? We're just finding that when the false sense is gone, what's left is the true sense. And that's you. I really want to bring that home. It's you. This is where you are looking from. This is your true identity. This is the true you. Liz Love, thank you. You're welcome. The namaste. Thank you. Remy Zebak says, hi, G. Want your opinion on free will? Because how I observe it now, there's no control over anything, even though the thoughts that arise and the action we take on. Even the thoughts that arise and the actions we take on. Please continue reading below. 200 letters max, okay. Sure. The actions we take on, please, are based on the frequency we're at that attracts that. They just happen to you, and by surrender and without resistance, you flow. It's all insights and actions on that. It just is. Yes, the sense of free will requires someone to exercise that free will, right? If there's nobody there to exercise it, there's really no free will. So it becomes a matter of exploration, and I like the way you approached it, Rami. You said you observe that there's really no control over anything, even the thoughts that are arising. You don't choose thoughts. Thoughts just come, don't they? I mean, follow any thought to its origin, and it just appeared. Once a thought appears, if it is believed, it will attract other thoughts like it. And there's a natural association that takes place, right? I mean, if you're having a conversation with someone, I know you've probably had conversations. Probably in the last day you've had conversations about some of the negative events that took place. People start talking about stuff. They go, God, that was really terrible what was happening. You know what? And you can just feel it'll attract more thoughts about how terrible it is and other terrible things, right? It's actually kind of a natural phenomenon. On the same consequence, you get a lot of people, somebody tells a joke, somebody tells another joke, and all of a sudden jokes are being attracted. It's really a focus of attention and the focus of our beliefs. So a thought arising, every thought arising, everything that takes place is a cosmic event. It is life happening, including the arising of thoughts. And a thought arises, and then somebody says, I chose that thought, which itself is a thought. That thought is the belief in free will, saying that somehow I chose that thought. I wanted that thought to come. But go and look. You didn't make it. If you were making that thought, you would have had to have the thought before you had the thought, right? Oh, I think I want to have this thought now, right? It doesn't work that way. Everything spontaneously arises. And you'll find that the thoughts that arise are simply the result of conditioning. And when you realize that they're nothing but the thought of the patterns of thought that are conditioning, you stop believing in them. You stop giving them that much weight or importance. You just watch them come and go. And from the point of view of watching them come and go, you dominate them. You get dominion over them. You transcend them because you don't believe them. Because no thought can ever tell you who you are. It can only describe the finite. It can only describe objects. It cannot define you. So no thought can tell you the truth about yourself. So all thoughts are robotic. So I often refer to it as the robot. That voice in your head is not you. It is conditioning. Right? You are the consciousness that is aware of it. When you are aware of it as conditioning, you become the master of it. And yes, if you're believing a certain kind of thought, that frequency will attract other thoughts like it to it. But if you see every thought is not actually true, but only my belief in it gives it truth, it has no attractive power without my belief in it. It is my belief that attracts other thoughts, not the thought. The thought has no power whatsoever. And so the idea of free will is just a thought. It's the egoic mind trying to grab control. Once again, there's no one in control. And we don't need to be. You don't need to control anything. It's just the ego that doesn't like what it's experiencing, so it wants it to be something else, instead of simply marveling at the wonder of life and using even the most horrific events taking place to understand the nature of the egoic mind and the true path to freedom. And that's to know what you are. Winnie Dang said it beautifully, GP. Thank you, Winnie. I'm glad that touched you. Dave and Elaine, hi folks. Thank you for your comments on the Lankavatara Sutra. We look forward to immersing ourselves in it. Have to bow out a bit early tonight, as early start tomorrow. Good. Thank God for replays. Beautiful satsang. Thank you, Dave and Elaine. Enjoy the Lankavatara. As I have mentioned before, I recommend it. It's not an easy read, though. I've actually thought about doing some satsangs or maybe some classes on it to help people begin to approach it. Amber says, do you think we choose as awareness each incarnation, the type of experiences and circumstances we are born into for a reason? Is there an intention for each unique expression of life? Is it karma? Wow. Well, we don't want to project upon the pure state of awareness, which is what you are experiencing every moment. You actually are awareness experiencing awareness. Right? If you look closely, you'll find it's the only way you can explain the fact that you are self-aware, having an experience. Awareness is present, and you are that awareness. But now, let's not project upon awareness the sense of being a person that is choosing this experience over that experience. What arises is the spontaneous arising of everything, the manifest face of the unmanifest essence. And both are the nature of awareness. The nature of consciousness is both undifferentiated, unmanifested, pure sense of existence. And it is the dynamic expression that we call life. Now, because you are forever, There is no birth or death for you. Births and deaths happen in your presence. Life appears, life disappears. But now if you look closely, you'll see that it's happening all the time. This body is shedding cells and creating new ones at the rate of millions every second. Right? At various phases in your life, the 10-year-old died to gave birth to the 11-year-old. There was a transformation of our character, of our preferences, of our loves, of our relationships, everything. Right? It is, the birth and death thing is a constant cycle. It is not something that just happens with the demise of the body. That's just one of many that take place. The nature of the experience itself is simply the nature of awareness. If you know you are the awareness, you are no longer subject to births and deaths. That is, you no longer believe that it is you dying and being born. Right? You see that as simply the manifestation of awareness, coming to existence, going out of existence, as it does. It comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. It is yin-yang, that's what it does. Right? And so it has no reason, right? Like the idea of like a soul's journey and the lessons my soul wanted to learn and that sort of stuff. It's not that. It doesn't have a reason for anything. Awareness is complete in and of itself. And so what is arising is not because it's a choice or because there's a reason or a purpose or something to be gained, like awareness doesn't have everything that it needs. It is simply the spontaneous arising of form, which is the manifestation of emptiness. Form and emptiness are one. They are not two. So the emptiness, which is pure awareness, and the manifest universe are one. You could think of the manifest universe as awareness pondering its own infinite nature. And how would you express the infinite, eternal nature? Except as an infinitely large, constantly evolving and developing form that never sits still for a moment, that is forever unfolding, forever shifting and changing, and yet it arises out of that which never shifts, never changes, is never born, and will never die. So it is the spontaneous appearing of awareness to awareness. So you see that form does not exist independent of the perceiver of the form. It is the very manifest nature of awareness itself. Does that help, Amber? It's a beautiful question, and I really thank you for it. Does that help? It is a very subtle thing, because I can detect that there's a certain sense of a person, the personal self there, that is choosing this life or that life. It may be more ephemeral, more be like my soul and soul's journey and that sort of stuff. But it is still an outlined, limited sense of self. If you can form any picture, right, that form is a limitation on the infinite. When the form is seen as the manifestation of the infinite, you see that it is not a limitation on the infinite, and there's no limitation on the form either, any more than by understanding that a song belongs to the infinite potential of music does not limit music to a song. And music isn't deciding that I want this song and not that song, or I've got to learn what music is. It's just the infinite nature of music continually unfolds in yet another form, another piece of music, another melody, another lyric, right? But it's not, I think I'll do this now. So awareness, I think I'm going to have this experience now. It's not, it's a spontaneous arising. It's like jazz. It's just, it is just happening. But it's happening because it lays on the substratum, of the infinite awareness that is self-existence and self-knowledge. And Kaufman says, is not belief a thought as well? No, it's not, actually. It's subtle, right? In a sense, you could... something stuck in my eye here. In a sense, you could say it is just a thought, but, a thought comes up, I believe it, and I say, I believe that thought. I believe that to be true. But but can you sense that energetically there's something really that gets kind of drawn to this thought, to think, to believe it, to accept it? Which means there's something much more subtle going on. And again, it's the sense of identity that says, that thought is true. But there's an energy of belief. Right? There's an energy that something says, that's true and not that, and I'm going to cling to that. And you can feel that. I'm going to cling to that. And when I do, I am creating a world. My belief literally creates the experience which draws other things into it. So I tend to think of belief more as an energetic kind of magnetism than a thought, but it, of course, gives rise to thought. If I believe something, I'm going to generate all sorts of thoughts from that perspective, aren't I? There's really no way to avoid it. So I urge everyone to challenge all beliefs. Don't have beliefs. Have truth. Truth doesn't need to believe anything. Right? And truth discerns truth and falsity without the need for belief. It mitigates the need for belief, to cling to anything. Because the truth has nothing it needs to cling to. It's the truth. It holds all the cards. It is unchanging and eternal. But this truth that I'm conveying here is not a conceptual truth. It's not a knowledge truth. Right? It is the truth of being. The truth and being are one. Arby asks, from a oneness perspective, are we alone? There's only one of us here, yes. But it's not an aloneness the way a person would feel alone, right? Which means there are others and I'm over here and, I don't have people around me and that sort of stuff, so. It's not that. It is simply the fact that there is only one. And that one is infinite. Simple as that. David Maloney, I found you years ago, GP, drawn to your teachings on masculine, feminine polarity. Started the journey for me. Learned to stop seeking outside and to look within. Relationships are healing. God bless. Oh, wow. Wonderful. Yeah, maybe even part of the Balls Project a long time ago, that forum I had for men. That basic polarity is just the fundamental energy of the flow of life between opposites. Right? The important thing to note is that while we're the witness to this constant flow, like the masculine and feminine polarities, that which is witnessing them transcends them. You can't put it on either side. Awareness is completely agnostic. Whatever arises in it is seen by it, and therefore it itself is not stuck in anything that arises. So pure awareness has no gender. And yet, that awareness manifests as gender. And the beauty of it, the utter beauty of it. And relationships if done well, if done correctly, openly, two people who are genuinely open to discovering who they really are, enormously healing. A relationship, a really deep romantic relationship, can heal the childhood wounds for men and women. It can bring us back to a place of genuine acceptance, where we can accept ourselves as we are, because we find that we are actually loved as we are. And that experience has such a powerful healing effect on the entire energy system. Now, we can bring that to ourselves, and we should start there, by bringing that kind of self-acceptance and self-visibility to ourselves, and to do that in the presence of our pure awareness. Awareness by its nature is forgiving, it's compassionate, it's accepting, it's loving, it rejects nothing, it is allowing. It's the nature of love itself. It is where love comes from. The essential oneness that is you is the nature of love. I mean, love expressed is unification, isn't it? It's a unifying. And it's beautifully expressed in the masculine and the feminine. It's beautifully expressed in community and family. Can be expressed in culture. Could even be expressed in politics and economics if we chose to do so. So it is all about self-acceptance, and a really good, solid relationship is one where we are accepted as we are, and we accept them as they are, and that becomes the powerful healing balm. That's what actually makes it happen. And our capacity to do that is in direct proportion to us doing it for ourselves. So then a relationship amplifies it. So I don't teach as much about all of that. People ask me to, I will, the question just now, because I'm, just over the years I've focused more and more on bringing people to the awakening to who they are. Because all suffering and inner conflict arises out of the ignorance of who we are. And by ignorance, I mean, oh no, it's believing yourself to be who you're not. That's ignorance. It isn't just, the absence, like, duh, right? Like, I don't know. That kind of divine ignorance is actually very powerful. I don't know who I am. I just am who I am. And so that becomes a perpetual discovery. Rami says, thank you. Can you speak about states of consciousness? Always there's this feeling that there's more to experience and be aware of. Well, there is always more to experience and be aware of, because it's infinitely unfolding, right? Now, the feeling that I need more, that feeling of lack, that's different. There is always more experience happening. It's always happening. You can't shut experience off. And it is forever unfolding. It is never static. Right? It is always the play of opposites. It is always coming and going. So that feeling that there's more to be experienced really is the seeking feeling, I need more in order to be myself. No, you don't. You are that which is aware of all experience. That which is aware of the coming and going is not coming and going. That which is aware of the polarities is not a polarity. It is the emptiness in which everything can appear, including complete polar opposites. It needs none of the experience. It needs no particular experience. It doesn't need a particular kind of experience. It needs no particular flavor. And so it does not need experience, because it's not going anywhere. It has no destination. It has no growth pattern. The pure consciousness that you are does not need to grow. but it will experience various states. Happiness, grief, love, passion, loss. All of those will be experienced by that which is beyond all experience. When our sense of I really comes home to live in the changeless, timeless awareness in which all this is appearing, everything that appears will cease to be a problem. It's not that it won't be enjoyed. Of course it will be. But it won't be a problem. You simply won't mind what's happening. Everything will simply be a coloring of experience, a particular vibration of experience. Nothing more. GP, says Robert, you mentioned challenge all thoughts. Can we say that to ourselves when they arrive? I challenge you. Yes, you could say that. I challenge you. But make sure that behind it, it's go, okay, are you true? Is this thought true? In the first place, no thought is the truth, right? Because the truth is beyond thought. Truth is that which is recognizing the thought. That which is looking at a thought and says, is this true or not? There's a consciousness there. There's a discerning eye there to distinguish if it's true. The moment I take something in and give it the title of true, it settles into my nervous system and begins to influence my experience of life. It will begin to color life. Now, the thoughts to be most aware of and to challenge is one way of looking at it, simply stepping back, noticing them, and saying, nope, not true, are the most important ones to do that are the thoughts that are referring to you as a person, as a separate, struggling entity. Every thought that says, I'm having a hard time, needs to be challenged. Because if you accept that, you have a hard time, right? And nobody here wants to sign up for hard times, right? I'm doing a hard time retreat, right? For 3 days, going, $5,000, and we're going to have a hard time all weekend. I don't think I get anybody signing up, right? But yet that's what we do. Oh, this is so hard. Oh, wait a minute. There's simply an experience taking place. I don't need the narrative of this is hard. I don't need to turn it into something other than the direct experience that it is. I always mess up. God, I'm not getting this, right? None of those thoughts, if they are believed, we believe them into existence, and suddenly they will color your experience, and you will experience them, and you'll think it's some kind of an objective truth, when in fact it is nothing but a reflection back of what you've believed to be true. You always can stand guard at the door to admit, by the velvet ropes. You're the bouncer by the velvet ropes. You admit only that which you wish to see made manifest. It's really a very simple choice. And you'll notice that your capacity to discern the relative truth or error of a thought gets heightened. You can trace any thought to its origin. Is it originating in the idea that I'm a separate self, or is it originating from the idea of pure awareness? It's easy to see. Is this a thought emerging from a sense of infinite love and compassion, or is it infinite selfishness and grabbiness, right? It's very simple to see. Ooh. Make sure so I can get to the rest of these. Amber says, thank you. Is the separate self that desires to find purpose Is it the separate self that desires to find purpose and meaning in life? And then Anne says, love is all there is. Love is all there is a truth. The fact that love is all there is a truth. The thought love is all there is not. That's just a thought. And it may or may not reflect some truth. There's nothing that makes thought true. There's got to be a substratum, something underneath supporting it that makes it true. So the truth is that love really is all there is. That the internal, indivisible, inner unity, the oneness of one, is the essence of love. Now the question Amber has is the separate self that desires to find purpose and meaning in life. No. The separate self wants to find a personal purpose. I have a person. This person I believe myself to be has purpose and meaning. It doesn't, because it doesn't exist. It's just a thought. But there's a natural impulse to find purpose and meaning, which what it really is the innate sense we all have to return home to our source, to find meaning, which really means a truth that is changeless. That's what meaning is, right? Right? A truth that is changeless, and a happiness that is not a cheat, doesn't come and go, and freedom that is unconditional. Right? Now, that manifests itself as a desire for purpose and meaning in life. But the substratum, the foundation upon which it is resting, is simply our innate desire to know ourselves as we actually are. It's our innate need to awaken. It is the self awakening to the self. And then that shines the sense of meaning and purpose on everything, because then everything draws its meaning and purpose from that. But now, excuse me, I had something in my tooth. The separate sense of self, being inherently unstable and needing to grab onto something to give it some sense of solidity, it seeks to find a purpose and meaning for that person. Like, I am like this, and this has, and that doesn't exist, right? That is a misconception of the genuine purpose and meaning in life, which is simply love, truth, consciousness, awakening to itself, which just shines meaning and love and light and brilliance on everything that it sees. So we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? Remember, the separate self is just an idea being projected on the reality of experience, right? It is not a thing, right, that is trying to find purpose. Every desire is a cosmic event. It's the desire of life. It's an arising of life. The false sense, the sense of a separate self, projects itself on that and tries to make it personal. Every desire you have, the desire for freedom, the desire for everything, is the desires of life. They are not personal. They do not belong to you as a person. But the sense of a person tries to own them as if they're mine, right? You say, I am hungry. Well, your body is. Your body is simply craving food. Is it you who's craving food? No, it's a functioning of life. The body's saying, I need food because this is what I need to do. The body is a food processor, right? I mean, it's an energy conversion. It needs energy to convert it into energy to use it, to use that energy, right? That's life. It's not a personal possession. It's not a personal thing, right? It's really quite illegitimate to say, I am hungry. It's accurate to say, my body wants food. Right? And I'm aware of that, and I let it eat. My body has preferences for which food it wants and which food it doesn't want. But there's no self there. There's no self that wants to eat, and everything wants to eat. Every critter on the planet, plants, everything, right? So it's a depersonalization of what in fact is the infinite natural functioning of life itself. Right? So you see, everything is a cosmic event. Everything arises out of life as life, and nothing is personal. So the separate self is an image being projected on what's actually happening. Right? Can you see that? It's really, really important. So it's not an actual thing that has desires and purpose, it wants all this kind of stuff. It is just a thought, it's an idea, it's a thought structure, it's a pattern of thought that makes up an image of a self. That self, because it is an image and inherently incomplete and limited, will be seeking ways to try to shore itself up, which of course it's going to have to do. And as long as you believe that that's who you actually are, its sense of limitations will be felt as if they were your own. And they're not. They're the limitations of a thought pattern. And if you're not that thought pattern, you're the infinite awareness that is aware of that thought pattern. You are not stuck in it. You are not subject to it. It does not run you. It does not own you. It doesn't even have any effect on you anymore. Is that clear, folks? Is that clear, my friends? Getting on about time to bring this to a close. One more question here in the queue. Hey, GP, what do you think about psychedelics and the experiences they can show you? I've said about it before. There's nothing wrong about it. They can be very powerful experiences, but they'll only be a powerful experience if you're aptly prepared. And aptly prepared means, for me, I always recommend you have some kind of a meditation practice. You know how to allow. You are capable of being with your feelings, have learned how to process traumatic material coming up and the like, and you do it under the guidance of a real, honest-to-God, trained shaman. So, saying that, I also have to put the caveat that, like everything else, it is just an experience. And of course, what we experience has a profound influence on us. Right? You're having an experience now. It's sitting in satsang, pondering what I'm saying, taking in what I'm saying. What I'm saying, the experience, you pondering it, are all part of an experience that you're having. Right? Now, all experiences, the satsang experience, the best is to point you towards that which is beyond all experience. Right? Psychedelics are a medicine, right? And medicines are not something you take all the time, right? They have a specific purpose. But non-dual inquiry transcends even that. It's not about an experience. Yes, they can help break through a lot of material, but they cannot reveal to you who you are. They can't do that. You have to do that. This kind of spiritual inquiry, as far as it's the only way. It is the most direct path. Right? Taking you directly to the place from which all experience is had. All experience. And you can see that even if you have an incredibly expanding, mind-blowing experience, or have a real terrible experience, right? The actual nature of experiencing itself, which is consciousness, is the same in both. The real you transcends all experience. When you see that, you stop resisting or fighting or trying to create certain kinds of experiences, and you let go of all of that idea of needing to control or create or have anything be different than it is, and you just slip into the quiet calm and peace that is the nature of consciousness itself. And on that note, I'm going to bring our satsang to a close for today. Amber says, beautiful. Thank you much for answering my questions. Thank you for posing them. Thank you for coming to satsang. Wendy says, much gratitude, GP, and much gratitude to you as well. So, thank you. If you know the scratch that. My only job is to point you inward towards you, to see that you who are hearing my words right now are not who you think you are. You are not that image in your mind. That is a very narrow, small version of you, and it's not a good likeness. It's a really bad movie in comparison to the original. The real you is the great I am. The perfect, pure, innocent, untouched, unconditioned self. And you are already that. You do not have to become that. You only need to see that that is what you've always been. You've always been looking from that place. You could never not be looking from that place. That is what is seeing. What is seeing your life isn't the separate self. That is just a thought. What is actually seeing your life is the infinite consciousness that you actually are. The great awakeness that does not need to awaken. It's already awake. It never slept. And on that note, thank you. Ursula says like and share. Yes, please like and share. I always forget to remind people to do that. Tom says, thanks as always, GP. Always watch these, but don't get a chance to catch it live. Caught the last minutes this time. Good. Yay. It must be someplace probably much later, or maybe even Australia, where it's like way early in the morning. So, okay, well, thank you all for being here. Do like and share. Please tell your friends about it. I am so, oh, you're in the UK. Okay, very good. Anyway, don't struggle over anything I've said. The truth is bringing you to the truth, right? The truth of the words have their effect, even if your mind is doubting or objecting or even arguing. It's okay. The mind is nothing but conditioned patterns. It's nothing to fret about. Don't put pressure on yourself. Let this be a rather joyous exploration. Let this be a function of your natural curiosity, the most natural curiosity that a human being has, and that is to know yourself. Thank you all. Robert Ing says, I finally worked out how to do this. Thanks, goodbye. Oh, you're very welcome. Paruma says, thank you. So, thank you one and all. And let's do it again next week. Love you all. Namaste.